It was supposed to be 1 hour. Just one freaking hour. She said she had an emergency. Turned out the only emergency was that her Tinder date was impatient. So there I was standing barefoot in my hallway, holding a squirming 2-year-old in mismatched pajamas, while my neighbor's phone went straight to voicemail for the 5th time in a row. I don't even know this woman that well. Her name is Kayla. She lives across from me in our apartment complex, and we've exchanged maybe a dozen words in the past 3 months. Mostly small talk about packages and the trash schedule. Last week she asked if I liked our building's Wi-Fi. That was it. That was the depth of our bond. So when she knocked frantically at my door that Friday evening, panting like she'd run a mile, clutching her daughter in one arm and her phone in the other, I didn't think twice. She looked desperate. "Please," she gasped. "Can you watch Ellie for just 1 hour? Something's come up and I don't have anyone else. I swear I'll be right back." I hesitated. I was in sweatpants. My hair was wet. I'd literally just taken dinner out of the microwave. But Ellie, her daughter, had the biggest brown eyes and was clutching a tiny stuffed elephant like it was her lifeline. 1 hour, I repeated. "Yes, 1 hour. Thank you so much." And then she was gone. First it was fine. Ellie was shy, quiet. She cried for her mom a little, then settled in with my cat. I gave her some apple slices, let her watch cartoons. An hour passed. Then 90 minutes. I called Kayla. No answer. I texted. Nothing. I called again. Straight to voicemail. By the time the 3rd hour ticked by, I was pacing. Ellie had fallen asleep on my couch. I didn't have a car seat. I didn't have diapers. I didn't even know if this kid had any allergies. I was on the verge of calling the cops when I decided to try something first. I remembered Kayla mentioning a new guy last week to someone in the elevator. I didn't catch the full convo, but I did remember one thing she said: he worked at a bar near Main and 34th. So I did what any pissed-off amateur detective would do. I found the bar's name online, called them, and asked if they'd seen a woman matching Kayla's description. "Yeah," the bartender said slowly. "She's been here since 8. Why? Is she with a guy? Tall, wearing a denim jacket? Yeah, they're still at the back booth. Want me to get her?" "No," I said through clenched teeth. "Just, thank you." I hung up. It was 11:42 p.m. She left her kid with a stranger so she could go on a date across town, and turned off her phone. I had no idea what to do. I stared at Ellie sleeping, innocent and drooling on my throw pillow, and I just snapped. Not loudly, not with violence, but something inside me shifted. I opened my door, walked across the hall, knocked. Of course, no answer. I turned the knob. Locked. I stood there for a full minute. Then I called CPS. It wasn't a dramatic call. I gave them the address. Explained calmly that a mother had left her toddler with me for several hours, uncontactable, no supplies, no car seat, nothing. They said they'd send someone to check things out. I gave my name and hung up. At 12:30 a.m., Kayla finally showed up. She looked surprised to see me open the door, still holding her sleeping child. "Oh my God," she said with a fake laugh. "I'm so sorry. My phone died and then I couldn't get an Uber in." "You were at the Barrel on Main and 34th, I cut in. She froze. Her eyes darted like a deer caught in headlights. "I called," I said. "I know exactly where you were." Her expression shifted from fake sorry to real defensive in 2 seconds flat. "You had no right to stalk me. That's a gross invasion of privacy. You left your child with someone you barely know. For over 5 hours. With no contact. You don't get to talk to me about boundaries." Just then someone knocked behind her. 2 CPS agents and a police officer. I stepped aside. Kayla screamed. Actually screamed. Not out of fear but outrage. She clutched Ellie and started crying hysterically. I stayed out of the way while they talked to her, calmly and firmly. She kept throwing glances at me like I was some kind of traitor. "You called the state on me?" she hissed when they let her speak. "You backstabbing bee. I called because your daughter was your responsibility, and you treated her like a dog you could drop off at the groomer. I didn't do this to hurt you. I did this to protect her." There was something deeply disturbing about how fast her tears dried when she realized they weren't arresting her. CPS just wanted to make a report and check the home. Kayla said she didn't want to let them in without a warrant. She was clearly angling for a confrontation. But they told her that was her right. Then they told her that a report had been made, and they would be following up, that if she refused cooperation it could escalate. She shut up after that. The next morning, she sent me a 10-paragraph text accusing me of ruining her life, traumatizing Ellie, and making her look like a bad mom. She said the only reason she didn't press charges for harassment was because she had too much compassion. I didn't respond. But the kicker? 2 days later I saw her at the mailbox. She was with the same guy from that night. And she had the nerve to smirk at me like she just won a game. Ellie was holding his hand. I don't know what broke my heart more. How easily she brushed it off, or how easily he accepted it. And now I can't stop asking myself, was I wrong to call CPS? Did I overstep? Did I ruin someone's life or did I save a child's? The fallout didn't come immediately. It crept in like mold behind a wall, slow and quiet until you couldn't ignore the smell. First, I thought Kayla would just avoid me from then on. Maybe send a snarky text or block me. Maybe mutter under her breath if we passed in the hallway. But no, that would have been too simple. Kayla decided to turn it into a campaign. It started with whispers. Neighbors I'd never spoken to started giving me sideways glances. Mrs. Ramirez from 3C wouldn't return my good morning. A couple across the hall who used to chat with me about their dog stopped making eye contact. First, I thought I was imagining it, until I overheard Kayla one afternoon on the stairwell, talking to someone new who just moved in. She pretended to be a friend, then called the cops on me. Can you believe it? Some people just live to ruin others. She wanted me to hear it. She said it loud enough, clear enough. And the new neighbor just nodded, probably too uncomfortable to challenge her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them the truth. But how do you say, she left her baby with me for 5 hours so she could go get laid, without sounding like you're stirring drama? I tried to ignore it. I told myself it would pass. But it didn't. The complex became cold. People stopped knocking on my door for package mix-ups. I'd come into the laundry room and suddenly it was empty. The walls weren't closing in but the people inside them were. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. 2 weeks after that night, I got a letter slipped under my door. No envelope. Just a folded piece of paper that said in uneven handwriting, "You need to stop lying about people or karma's gonna get you back." No signature. I should have gone to the front office, reported it. Maybe I should have called the police again. But I didn't. I didn't want to escalate things. I didn't want to give Kayla the satisfaction of knowing she'd rattled me. I stayed quiet. But I didn't stay passive. I started keeping a log. Every weird interaction. Every dirty look. Every noise complaint that suddenly showed up on my record despite me living alone and barely playing music. I even bought a little camera for my peephole just in case. Then one afternoon as I came home from work, I saw Ellie sitting on the stairs alone. No one else was around. She had a lollipop in one hand and tears on her cheeks. I dropped everything. "Ellie? Where's your mom?" She didn't answer. She just stood up, walked to me and held my hand like she remembered exactly who I was. Called out for Kayla. Nothing. I knocked on her door. Nothing. I banged. Still nothing. I didn't wait this time. I called the police. While I waited, I sat with Ellie on my couch again. Deja vu hitting me so hard I felt sick. She was older now, almost 3 but still small, still quiet. She asked for her elephant stuffy. I told her I didn't have it, and she nodded like she understood disappointment better than most adults. The police showed up. I told them everything. Kayla finally came back half an hour later, holding a grocery bag. She looked surprised to see cops again. "Seriously," she snapped. "This is harassment now." She was alone. On the stairs. I just ran to the store. I was gone for 10 minutes. No one knew that. She didn't know that. And she was crying. She rolled her eyes. In front of the officers. Ellie, still sitting in my lap, looked over at her mom and whispered, "I thought you forgot me." Something in Kayla's face cracked. Not guilt. Annoyance. She turned to the officers. "Are we done here?" They made a report again. CPS followed up 2 days later. That's when everything exploded. I didn't know this part until weeks later, But apparently Kayla already had a warning on her record. Something from years ago in another state. Nothing serious enough to remove custody, but this second incident? This sealed it. CPS began an official investigation. She wasn't arrested, but they started mandatory home visits, parenting classes, warnings. And that's when the gossip turned. Because the more people saw CPS agents knocking at her door, the more they started asking questions. And then came the cherry on top. The guy she'd been dating? The one she left Ellie for? He dumped her. Publicly. Loudly. In the parking lot. Right outside where the building manager was smoking. "You're unstable," he yelled. "I'm not getting dragged into some custody mess with you." Neighbors saw. Word got around. Suddenly I wasn't the villain anymore. Kayla stopped smirking. She stopped talking about me. And then one day she was gone. She moved out in the middle of the night. No warning. Just an empty apartment the next morning. I thought that was the end. I told myself it was over. But Ellie haunted me. I don't mean in some supernatural way. I mean her memory. Her tiny hand in mine. Her quiet voice asking for a stuffed animal. Her whisper, "I thought you forgot me." I kept replaying it. Over and over. So I did something that might have been crazy. I called CPS myself. Asked to speak with the caseworker. Told them I didn't want details, just wanted to know if Ellie was okay. They couldn't tell me much. Confidentiality and all. But the woman I spoke to softened her voice and said, "She's with family. And she's safe." That should have been enough. But it wasn't. Because I kept thinking, what if Kayla had dropped her off with someone less decent than me? What if I hadn't been home? What if she had wandered off the stairs and onto the street? So I wrote this. I wrote it not to clear my name, not to make myself look like a hero. I wrote it because I still wake up sometimes thinking I hear a knock on my door, and a small voice asking to come in. I still wonder if I did too much or not enough. And I still ask myself every night, was I really the one who crossed the line? Or did I just draw one she couldn't handle? I didn't think I'd see her again. After she moved out, the air in the building felt cleaner, lighter. Like the tension had packed up and left with her. For a while I let myself believe it was done. I even started smiling at my neighbors again. Some smiled back. Some avoided eye contact. That was fine. I wasn't looking to be the hero of this story anymore. I just wanted my quiet life back. Then one Saturday morning 3 months later, I went to the farmer's market downtown. It was crowded, loud, buzzing with dogs and toddlers and college kids pretending to care about local honey. I was sipping overpriced lemonade when I saw a little girl chasing bubbles near a flower stall. Brown curls, purple hoodie, stuffed elephant dangling from one hand. My chest tightened. I didn't even want to believe it. I told myself 100 kids probably had the same toy. But then I heard her laugh. Ellie. She turned, looked right at me, and she froze. Recognition flashed in her eyes. Her face lit up like a bulb. She tugged at the hand of the woman beside her. "Mama, that's the door lady," she said. I nearly dropped my drink. Because it wasn't Kayla she was tugging. It was a different woman. Mid-40s. Gray in her hair. Warm face. Surprised eyes. She looked at me. Then looked at Ellie. "You know her." Ellie nodded. She had cats. And apples. The woman walked over cautiously. She smiled, but there was wariness behind it. Protective. "Hi. I'm sorry. Do you know Ellie?" I introduced myself. Told her I used to live across from her mom. That I had watched Ellie once when her mom needed help. I kept it short. Careful. The woman's shoulders relaxed. "I'm her aunt," she said. "Kayla's older sister." I didn't know Kayla had a sister. She never mentioned family. She's not with her mom anymore. I asked gently. The woman hesitated, then said, "No. She's been with me since April." "It's a long story." I nodded. "I was the one who made the second CPS call," I admitted. She looked at me for a long time. Then to my surprise she stepped closer. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You probably saved her." I nearly cried. Right there. Among peaches and homemade soaps. She told me that after Kayla lost primary custody, she tried to fight it. But she kept missing court dates. Failed a drug test. refused to cooperate with the parenting plan. Eventually, she stopped showing up entirely. Ellie had been with her aunt ever since. She still asks about her mom, the woman said, but less and less now. That hit me harder than I expected. She told me Ellie was in therapy, that she had nightmares at first, that she refused to sleep unless someone sat with her, that she used to cling to her stuffed elephant like it was armor. She talks about you sometimes, the woman added, says you made her feel safe, said you gave her apple slices and let her pet your cat. I didn't know what to say. I'd only had her for a few hours, felt so small, so insignificant. But to her it had meant something. We exchanged numbers, just in case. Before they left, Ellie looked up at me and said, "Do you still have your cat?" I laughed. "Yeah. He still hides when the microwave beeps." She giggled. And then they were gone. I stood there in the middle of the market, people brushing past me, and I realized I'd been holding my breath since March. For the first time in months I exhaled. But life of course doesn't stay simple. Because 2 weeks later I got a letter. A real one. Certified mail. From Kayla. It was 5 pages. Handwritten. The tone was strange. Part apology, part attack, I don't know. Confession? She said she hated me. That I ruined everything. That she was just trying to find love. That I didn't understand what it was like to be a single mom. That she didn't want to leave Ellie but sometimes needed to breathe. Then she said she wished I'd minded my own business. But near the end her writing shifted. She admitted she wasn't okay. That the guy she'd gone on the date with that night ghosted her. That she spiraled. That she drank too much. That she missed court because she was ashamed. And then out of nowhere she wrote, "You were probably the best mother figure Ellie ever had, and that's what broke me." I didn't know what to do with that. I still don't. I haven't written her back. I don't think I will. Because this isn't about me and Kayla anymore. It's about Ellie. And the weird, tangled, tiny role I played in her story. Sometimes I think about how easily it could have gone differently. If I hadn't answered the door. If I'd shrugged and said, "Sorry, I'm busy." If I just watched Netflix and ignored my instincts. And sometimes I wonder if the universe set the whole thing up. Like a test I didn't know I was taking. I don't know if I passed. But I know one thing. The next time someone leaves a child at my door and disappears, I'll do it all over again. Even if it makes me the villain in someone else's story. Because maybe just maybe being the villain in one person's narrative is the price of being the hero in someone else's life. And I'm okay with that now. Life eventually fell into a new rhythm. Not perfect. Not storybook neat. But livable. The whispers in the building faded. New tenants moved in. One even brought me banana bread after they heard I had a cat. I still get nervous around my doorbell. Still hesitate when someone knocks unexpectedly. But I don't flinch like I used to. Sometimes the scar fades just enough to forget it's there. I got a text from Ellie's aunt about a month after that farmer's market run-in. It was a picture. Ellie holding a finger-painted card that said, "To the cat lady. Thank you for the apples." I laughed so hard I cried. She remembered the smallest things. The ordinary kindness that felt like nothing when it happened. That was the moment I understood something that I hadn't been able to name before. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel good. It doesn't come with applause or gratitude or vindication. Sometimes it feels like betrayal. Like doubt. Like guilt. Sometimes the person you helped will hate you for it. And sometimes you won't even be sure you helped at all. But if a child sleeps better at night because of you, if one moment of safety helped her build trust again, then maybe that's enough. Weeks passed. Then months. Then, on a cold Thursday in December, I got another text. This time it was from Ellie's aunt again. She said they were doing well. Ellie was starting preschool. She'd made a friend named Max. She still carried the stuffed elephant, but now only for bedtime. She wanted to write me a letter. I told her she could. The letter came in the mail 2 weeks later. Crayon scrawled, barely legible. A mix of backwards letters and stickers. It said, "Thank you for the cat. And apples. I remember your house. I hope you come visit." I cried for the 3rd time that year over a child who'd only ever known me as a stranger with apple slices and a safe couch. And then the real twist happened. I ran into Kayla again. Not in some dramatic stormy face-off. Not at court or in a police station. At a pharmacy. She looked different, older, tired. She was wearing a winter coat that didn't quite fit. She was alone. And when she saw me, she didn't sneer or glare or pretend not to recognize me. She just nodded. A tiny, almost imperceptible nod. I nodded back. That was it. No apology. No confrontation. Just the quiet understanding that sometimes the past can't be undone. I don't know where she lives now. I don't know if she's still trying to get her life together. I hope she is. For her own sake. But I don't check up on her. I don't ask Ellie's aunt for updates about Kayla. That part of the story is closed. What stayed open, though, was the strange bond that had formed between me and that little girl. Not a daily relationship. Not co-parenting or some surrogate aunt title. Just small connections. Little moments. Her aunt would send me a photo once every couple of months. Ellie at a zoo. Ellie dressed as a ladybug for Halloween. Ellie with a book. Ellie asleep in a fort made of blankets. Every time I saw her smiling, I felt something loosen in my chest. Like a thread that had been pulled too tight finally let go. Eventually I visited. It wasn't anything big. Just an afternoon. We baked cookies. She showed me her room. I met the infamous Max. We fed goldfish crackers to a very uninterested cat. When I left, she gave me a hug without being asked. No tears. No drama. Just a soft, honest hug from a kid who felt safe. I stood outside their house for a few minutes after. Not crying. Not shaking. Just breathing. I think I needed that more than I knew. Because the truth is, I had carried the guilt longer than I let on. Even after she moved out. Even after CPS confirmed what I'd done was necessary. Even after Ellie's aunt thanked me, I still replayed that night like a loop in my brain. What if I'd done it differently? What if I'd waited one more hour? What if Kayla had come back before the cops arrived? But now I understood something else. The question wasn't whether I ruined someone's life. The question was whether I protected someone else's. And the answer finally, quietly, completely was yes. Yes, I did. I gave a child a few hours of safety. I forced a system to look closer. I disrupted a pattern that might have become something worse. I didn't do it perfectly. But I did it. And that has to count for something. The last time I saw Ellie, she asked if I was ever going to have a kid of my own. I smiled and said I didn't know. She nodded seriously like a tiny professor. You'd be good at it. But not if you forget the apples. I promised I wouldn't. Then she ran back to Max. And I stood there watching her live a life that could have gone very differently. And I whispered a quiet thank you to whatever force had made her mom knock on my door that night. Not because I wanted the responsibility. Not because I was looking to be anyone's savior. But because sometimes the right people are in the wrong place at exactly the right time. And sometimes doing the hard thing makes you the villain in the moment but the guardian in the long run. I'll never forget that night. And I'll never stop asking myself what I would have done if I hadn't answered the door. But I did. And that one choice changed everything. Not just for Ellie, but for me too. Because now when I think about who I am, about what I'm capable of, there's a new image in my mind. A girl in purple pajamas holding an elephant. And a woman in sweatpants saying yes when she didn't have to. That's who I am. And I'm proud of her. Even if it took me months to admit it. Even if some people still think I overstepped. Because the truth doesn't care who likes it. And the truth is this. I do it again. Every time. Without regret.